Everyday Americans need a champion, and I want to be that champion.
We're here and we are following this breaking news out of Washington. Some serious allegations this morning facing the State Department.
That's right. According to internal State Department memos, the agency might have called off or intervened in investigation into possibly illegal and inappropriate behavior within its ranks, allegedly to protect jobs and avoid scandals. This concerns the time that Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. We want to get right to NBC's Chief White House correspondent Chuck Todd with the latest. Chuck, good morning to you.
Good morning, Savannah. You know, there's an old saying in Washington that the cover-up is worse than the crime. But in this case, both parts of it are disturbing. Allegations of prostitution and pedophilia, and allegations that those crimes were somehow covered up or not looked into. So the State Department this morning is having to respond to those claims and those investigations of misconduct by State Department officials, including by an ambassador and security agents attached to then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. And the allegations are that these investigations were whitewashed, quashed altogether, and that those orders came from high up.
NBC News has obtained documents related to ongoing investigations into some disturbing allegations involving State Department personnel and at least one ambassador. A State Department memo says the ambassador, quote, routinely ditched his protective security detail in order to solicit sexual favors from both prostitutes and minor children. The memo also says a top State Department official directed department investigators to, quote, cease the investigation into the ambassador's conduct. It's just one of what another document describes as, quote, several examples of undue influence from top state officials. On Monday, a State Department spokesperson will not confirm specific investigations.
I'm not going to talk about specific cases, but I can say broadly that the notion that we would not vigorously pursue criminal misconduct in any case is preposterous.
A former investigator for the department's inspector general has complained to Congress and the media that the investigations have not been thorough because of the pressure from those high-level officials.
We take every allegation of misconduct seriously and we look into it.
It was less than 6 months ago that another major internal investigation painted Hillary Clinton's State Department in a negative light. That scathing report on the failed diplomatic security procedures in the aftermath of the Benghazi attack.
What difference at this point does it make? It is our job to figure out what happened. Everything we can.
As we noted, the whistleblower in this case, a member of the Inspector General investigative team at the State Department, she's gone to Congress demanding an investigation, and it's our understanding Congressman Ed Royce, the leading Republican on House Foreign Relations, says he does plan on having an investigation, and no doubt hearings are probably going to come soon as well, Savannah.
But Chuck, where are we on this? Is at this point just allegations from one whistleblower? Have they been substantiated in any way?
Well, here's what it is. The whistleblower says that this report, that the internal investigation having to do with how diplomatic security even investigated these allegations, that's where this scathing report came from. It's how the investigators somehow dropped the investigations, including into this ambassador and onto some other deal, including on folks that were part of security detail. So the allegations themselves haven't been fully substantiated by us, but this Inspector General whistleblower believes that the evidence was clear, but the problem was the investigation wasn't done in time to find out for sure if this misconduct was happening.
More to come on this for sure. Chuck Todd, thank you very much.
I'm getting ready to do something too. I'm running for president.
These people are sick.
Ever notice how, as if on cue, all the dumb people on cable news and their Democratic allies in Congress for whom they are actually working, they start hyperventilating about the same thing at pretty much exactly the same time. Pick your topic, pick the day, it's always the same. Only the issue itself changes. Today's issue is the identity of the so-called whistleblower. That's the person who originally filed the complaint about the president's call with the president of Ukraine that set in motion the series of events that are certain to culminate in an official impeachment proceeding. Now, we're being told the one thing that we can't know about this whole process is who that person is, who the whistleblower is. Why can't we know that? Well, our bettors on television are telling us we can't know that because the identity of the whistleblower is the one thing standing in the way, standing between that person leading a normal life and that person being potentially injured in political violence. Now, political violence is a concern in this country. As we've said countless times in this show, we're adamantly and totally opposed to it in all cases, in every case. What's so startling, though, is that the people making these claims aren't against political violence adamantly and in every case. In fact, in many cases, they're for it. These are the people who you'll remember who told you to punch a Nazi. These are the people who applauded when various members of the Trump administration were screamed at and threatened in public places, with their families in some cases. We're talking about restaurants or walking down the street. So these people aren't actually concerned about protecting anyone, particularly people with different political views. They're totally fine slandering teenagers who go to Catholic high schools or pizza shops in small towns in Indiana. When it comes to people they don't agree with, like the guy whose life CNN wrecked for making fun of their logo, or the Ohio bakery that was nearly destroyed forever by Oberlin College, they'll charge right in there and ruin innocent people's lives. It doesn't bother them at all. But in this one specific case, they're telling you, you can't know. Well, why are they telling you that? Whenever they're that adamant about something, it ought to be your cue that something is going on here. What are they trying to protect? What don't they want you to know? What are they covering up? In this specific case, what they don't want you to know is that the so-called whistleblower might have been motivated by partisan impulses. This might be someone who disagrees with the president's policies. And maybe that's what this is really about, a policy disagreement. It's not about standing up heroically for his country. It's about undermining a democratically elected president with whom he disagrees. Now, they're swearing that that's not the case. Nancy Pelosi up there telling you she's praying for this country, and nothing makes her sadder than seeing the president impeached. This is terrible for all of us, and we just hope it's over soon. And the person who did this did so, the whistleblower, did so at great personal risk. And we're just hoping he can get through it. He's just doing the best he can for America. And, you know, by the way, maybe that's true. But maybe it's not true. Maybe the whistleblower is just another nasty little partisan, like so many of these people, like virtually everyone you see on cable news. And maybe they're lying to you. You can't know. And you won't know until you find out who this so-called whistleblower is. That's why they're hiding it. That's what's really going on here. Peter Van Buren has watched things like this for a long time. He's a veteran of the State Department. He's a whistleblower himself. He's also a contributing editor at the American Conservative. He joins us tonight. So, Peter, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
As someone who actually was a whistleblower and who wrote extensively about it, and I think it's fair to say you were punished for it.
Absolutely.
What do you make of this? Did any of the people crowing about the importance of whistleblowers ride to your aid when you were in this position?
No, absolutely not. And I want to say that as a whistleblower who chose not to be anonymous, I'm well aware of what being public on this can lead to. But in this specific case, it's very difficult because, of course, as a whistleblower, I want to protect the process, and anonymity can be such a critical part of all this.
Yes.
But in this case, the whistleblower is not anonymous. His name is available to anyone with Google, and it's not clear that he's a whistleblower. He didn't reveal information at personal risk. He didn't give us information that we didn't have. He basically reported corridor gossip. And at this point, his anonymity is in way against the value of knowing his motives and the process that brought him to us. And when you weigh that anonymity against the benefits of exposing that process, he needs to stand up as a patriot and say, here's why I did it, here's how I did it, and put himself where his mouth is.
I mean, I guess there are two tracks. The first is there is value in attaching your name to your views. I mean, this is a free country. We say that a lot. Let's make sure it remains a free country by openly stating what we believe, our disagreements with the status quo, and, you know, in the trust that you can still do that here. But second, the rest of us who are beginning to think that maybe the government is irredeemably corrupt, maybe we can't trust anybody, wouldn't we benefit from a little transparency here?
Well, more than benefit, we are going to be the ultimate judges of this. I think the process is partisan enough that we know what's going to happen in the House, and we can take a pretty good guess what's going to happen in the Senate. But a year from now, we are going to vote on whether Donald Trump should have a second term. And understanding whether this whistleblower is a patriot or whether he's an agent provocateur who set up this whole thing, teed it up for the Democrats, is what separates righteousness from a coup. And we need to know more about him and why he came forward and how he came forward so that next November when we judge righteousness, we can do that with all the information.
Well, and that's it right there.
That's the relevancy.
It's you know, the name is not material necessarily. It's who he is, what his motives are. It's the context that's completely missing.
Absolutely. His name is Fred or John or Steve is irrelevant. What's relevant is how did this corridor gossip become a whistleblower's complaint, and how did it thread its way through the bureaucracy to the point where it acted as nitroglycerin to trigger an impeachment? That separates the real from the political, and we need to know that. That's what's relevant here, not that his name is this or he lives over here, but what brought him to us. This process is critical. It lies at the heart of our democracy. We're talking about unseating a president in the middle of a campaign. That is an extremely serious act for our nation. And to go forward on that with someone in the back in the shadows whispering, hey, I heard something, doesn't seem consistent with our democracy.
It doesn't. Quickly, I just have to ask you a personal question.
Please.
Now that whistleblowers are, it's a sacrosanct category, which is fine with me. I'm for whistleblowers, actually. But now that everyone loves whistleblowers, has anyone congratulated you from the left for your services?
Came in while we're talking, but unfortunately I've been disowned by the left. People that I used to consider friends gave up talking to me. People that I used to consider colleagues at the State Department gave up talking to me. And even after the amazing work that other whistleblowers have done, exposing the NSA, exposing what's happened in our wars, I'm afraid that we as a group generally remain pariahs. Right now, there's a celebrity whistleblower who's taking the attention, but I suspect at some point the system will configure itself to wonder what his motives were.
Sad, but not surprising. Peter, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tucker.
Appreciate it. Before the contents of the whistleblower complaint were known publicly, a Democratic congressional staffer contacted the former American ambassador to Ukraine to discuss what the staffer described as, quote, quite delicate and time-sensitive questions. This show has obtained exclusively an email from that Democratic staffer for the House Foreign Affairs Committee sent by private email to the former American ambassador, Marie Yovanovitch. Now, Yovanovitch, as you know, is now a key player in the Democrats' impeachment probe and was recalled from her post in Ukraine by President Trump in May of 2019 following allegations of serious partisanship and political bias. In the email, the Democratic aide says this, quote, I'm writing to see if you would have time to meet up for a chat. In particular, I'm hoping to discuss some Ukraine-related oversight questions we're exploring. I'd appreciate the chance to ground truth a few pieces of information with you, some of which are quite delicate / time-sensitive, and thus we want to make sure we get them right, end quote. Now, that email was sent on August 14th. That's 2 days after the whistleblower complaint was filed and a month before that complaint became public. The whistleblower, however, went to Schiff's team, Adam Schiff's team, before filing the complaints. The question is, did Schiff's office tell other Democrats on Capitol Hill what was in the complaint? In other words, how long did this effort play out in secret before the rest of the country learned of it? Well, we asked the Democratic spokesman for the House Foreign Affairs Committee about this, and here's the response we got, quote, the committee wanted to hear from an ambassador whose assignment was cut short under unusual circumstances. This staff outreach was part of a months-long effort that culminated in the September 9th launch of an investigation into these events. Well, Congressman Lee Zeldin of New York asked Ambassador Yovanovitch directly about the email. Yovanovitch claimed that she never personally responded to it, never responded to the Democratic staffer. In fact, it turns out that she did respond. In fact, she said she, quote, looked forward to chatting with you to that staffer. And as Congressman Zeldin pointed out, the ambassador's original answer, which was dishonest, was given under oath. Meanwhile, we have an actual whistleblower here in Media World. That whistleblower worked for ABC News and leaked an off-air tape of an anchor, Amy Robach, talking in very frustrated tones about how her employers at ABC News killed her story on billionaire pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Why'd they do that? It'd be interesting to know. Well, whoever leaked that tape later went to work at CBS, where apparently was a woman. She was located. CBS and ABC got together. They found her, and they fired her. So in other words, those two networks spent a lot of time finding the person who embarrassed them, and no time at all figuring out who covered up for a pedophile and why. That tells you a lot, doesn't it? Ravi Swabi is an editor at Reason Magazine and author of the book Panic Attack, Young Radicals in the Age of Trump. He joins us tonight. Ravi, even by the standards of the press, for whom I literally have no respect at all, I mean, I couldn't have more contempt for the television networks than I do, and I say that having worked at almost all of them. This seems especially low to me.
Oh my God, it's horrifying. I mean, it speaks to something I've mentioned on your show a couple times, that the people who work at these networks who want to practice real journalism, who are reporters, who are journalists, who have interesting stories and want to hold the powerful accountable and get stymied, stopped, obstacles put in their way by powerful bosses who are apparently listening to people like Harvey Weinstein, listening to the British Crown in this case. There was some concern that the reporting on Epstein involved Prince Andrew, and they wouldn't let you do an interview with Kate Middleton or something.
Some celebrity dingbat from a foreign country didn't like it, so they suppressed a story, a real story about a pedophile.
Right.
And we still don't know who did that and why, but luckily the low-level staffer who told the rest of us about it is fired and humiliated.
Yeah, they're punished. I mean, that's media solidarity, right? There are two tribes. If you're in the media tribe and you cross them, they are going to hunt you down, they're going to find you, and they're going to punish you for this. I mean, it's incredible. It's
I was saying to a friend of mine, having been in this business for 28 years, I was talking to a friend of mine who's age as I am, he's been in as long as I have, and I said to him this morning, you know, I used to feel bad when media companies collapse because so many are collapsing. I don't think I do anymore. They're so rotten, I don't think you can defend this.
Well, do they see themselves as news outlets or just entertainment? Just we want to fluff pieces about how the British royals are living this week or something, or what celebrities up to
I
what
wouldn't
or
even
do
settle for that, but how about this? Don't cover up for the pedophile.
Right.
Can we draw a line there?
Right, this was an interesting story, obviously, with huge consequences that people wanted to know about, that involves powerful people on all sides of the political spectrum. This is not a polarized story in some sense. The people that Epstein was involved with, and we don't even know the extent of it, and we may never know, unfortunately, but they were not interested in doing more reporting on this because of threats from other people. Do bosses not back up their journalists anymore, or do they not do it in TV, I guess?
What's just so interesting is Fox is the only channel pursuing this. So you had ABC is clamped down completely. They called over to CBS to make sure they fired the employee who leaked it. Meanwhile, CNN, Jeff Zucker's network, and NBC, Noah Oppenheim's network, are not covering this. So in effect, all of them are covering up for Jeffrey Epstein. Why is this?
And when they say we didn't have enough evidence, so we couldn't have run these stories, I don't believe that, right? Because they were happy to have Michael Avenatti on to talk about Julie Swetnick and so on and so forth. Like when it's, do you know what I mean? Like there was that oh, we can't report this because we just don't have it 100% verified. That doesn't always, comport with their standards for how the news is covered, right?
The only winner in this, I think, is Amy Robach. Meanwhile, the celebrity anchor at her channel is having dinner with Jeffrey Epstein. She's trying to report on it. They're thwarting her. I hope she's rewarded in some way.
I see you. Yes.
Ravi, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sick of waiting. I know many of you are sick of waiting. Okay, so we hear the highly anticipated FISA abuse report by the Inspector General is being finalized by the DOJ Inspector General. The guy has 600 people working for him. What is taking so long? And while recent reports suggest we'd get the report sometime after Thanksgiving, we're now hearing it's going to come sooner. Here's somebody who knows the Inspector General. That would be the author of the bestseller, Guilty by Reason of Insanity, Why the Democrats Must Not Win. Also, attorney, columnist David Limbaugh. Look at his new book. It just came out. Power Grab, the liberal scheme to undermine Trump, the GOP, and our republic. Only 1 week old, a New York Times bestseller also. Welcome both of you to the program. David, congrats on your new book. Jason, your book's older. Congrats on your success. You know, Horowitz, I'm sick of it. Jason, I'm tired of hearing it. I'm tired of the audience hearing it's coming. I'm tired that he has 600 employees and they can't get this job done faster. How long has this been and how long do we have to wait now? Because it's getting old.
No, I'm getting sick of it as well. The Attorney General Barr thought it was going to come out in May, and here we are coming up on Thanksgiving. I think it's actually going to happen before Thanksgiving. I've talked to enough people who think it's right on that precipice. I don't think it has anything to do with Horowitz delaying it. I think it's the fact that Durham actually is moving forward on some prosecution. And one other point, Sean, I learned a long time ago from Inspectors General, when the subjects of the investigation start squealing before it's published, you know that it's going to be devastating. That would be Brennan, Clapper, Comey, and McCabe. Those people are squealing the most right now, and I think are going to take it the hardest in the shorts in this report.
Limbaugh, you're a great attorney. I see slam dunk case, sort of like Hillary's obstruction case. Slam dunk. We know they were warned, premeditated. We know that it was the bulk of information in the FISA application. We know that that was the dirty bought and paid for Hillary dossier. We know it's unverifiable because the author didn't stand by it himself under oath. So how is that not premeditated fraud on a court? Why would it take 400 years to get the report?
I sure hope they're uncovering every stone to prove the points you're making, Sean. There's a common thread with Ukraine. Both cases are based on fraudulent, sketchy evidence. That's a common thread with the Democrats. Look, they went after Trump, not disclosing that this was opposition research, paid for by Hillary, that Steele had an anti-Trump agenda, that he was fired by the FBI, that they presented a news article to the FISA court that was also sourced to Steele, that was corroborative evidence. What a fraud. We don't realize how serious a matter this is. The FISA court involves extraordinary circumstances. You have to have strong evidence because of the extraordinary privacy concerns that are involved in these kinds of warrants. And as you said, the Grassley memo showed that most of this warrant application was based on the Steele dossier. The Democrats poo-pooed that, so did the Never-Trumpers. Okay. Now we come out and find out it's totally true.
Hey, Jason, that's a slam dunk case. Premeditated fraud on a FISA court. Now, if I lied to a judge, or let's say I deleted subpoenaed emails, cleaned my hard drive, beat up my devices, and removed SIM cards, I'd go to jail. If I committed premeditated fraud on a court to spy on a presidential candidate, transition team, and president, I think I'd go to jail. I don't know why I would think that, but I just do.
If you did that, you should go to jail. And the fact that it said at the very top of this that it was verified and not, look for in this report the communications that happened after this report was submitted. Because there's a lot of concern that Brennan and Clapper and some of these others had some communication after the fact that shows what they had done previously wasn't necessarily true and verified. And at some point, the court has actually got to stand up for itself and actually go after some people. You can't just lie to the court.
David Limbaugh, you're a great attorney. You've done every contract of my career. Brilliant attorney. You've done every contract of your brother. You think you've done every one for the great one. You've done everybody's contracts. If all that's true, why is this so hard? Because I don't think you could get me out of jail with that, as smart as you are.
Yeah, I really don't understand it. I don't understand why it's taking so long and what they are ultimately going to do. You tend to be pessimistic because the Democrats always seem to skate on these things. They've not been held to account for starting this whole thing in the first place. They've not been held to account for lying about the Russia-Trump hoax. Think about that. They just pivot to Ukraine. None of this ever matters. Nobody ever stings them back. It's time that these counter reports, that these counter investigations by Durham and by the IG yield some fruit, because the public demands accountability. This cannot continue to go on. Jason's been great on this. This has got to stop.
What's going on at the big three television networks? In just a matter of weeks, execs at ABC, CBS, and NBC seem to have chosen to protect two rich and powerful deviants over the journalists who actually work for them. Just last month, Ronan Farrow, a former NBC reporter, revealed in great detail how NBC killed his painstakingly reported story exposing Harvey Weinstein. Not wanting to let the Peacock Network get away with all the fun, ABC and CBS are now getting into the mix themselves after ABC anchor Amy Robach's hot mic rant about how the network snuffed out her Jeffrey Epstein reporting. It went viral. The network there said that they were going to investigate. Well, not how this story was dropped, but who leaked the embarrassing video. Well, the investigation led them to CBS, where the since-departed employee reportedly now works or worked. Instead of protecting their employees, CBS acquiesced to ABC's pressure and fired that person. Now, the networks used to be in competition, remember, over ratings and stories. Now they're just in competition to see who can engage in the most disgusting and hypocritical cover-up. And the worst part, they're covering for each other. We're happy to be joined now by my friend, Tucker Carlson, host of Tucker Carlson Tonight here on FNC. Tucker, my friend, how are you? Good to see you.
Reading the script as it was rolling was making me so mad.
Tucker, what is going on here?
Well, they're acting as a cartel.
I was just going to say, this is a cartel, Mexico style, but in the United States and its media players.
To protect the powerful. This is a perfect 180-degree inversion of the basic charge of journalism, which is hold the powerful to account. They're running interference for them. They're crushing anyone who gets in the way of Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein. In the Epstein case, this raises very serious questions about the involvement of foreign governments, about whether or not he actually killed himself. There seems to be something of an emerging bipartisan consensus that maybe he didn't. Who knows? But this is a real story. This is not some frivolous celebrity story. It's a real story that touches on all kinds of powerful people, and for them to suppress it actually makes you nervous. It makes me nervous.
Right.
It's not just that they're incompetent. There's something very sinister about this, I think.
And so what else are they in cahoots about? What else are they protecting in the cone of the established networks, camaraderie,
They hunted down this woman who apparently was a woman who leaked the tape. And look, I get it. When I worked at NBC, someone leaked a tape of me talking off the air, and I didn't like it at all. I didn't admit to covering up any stories, but I mean, I understand.
It's happened to all of us caught up by it.
Of course.
It's the easiest story you can do.
It is.
Until you actually sit in the
I have to say, the only person who kind of comes out okay is Amy Robach, who seemed...
seemed genuine.
Yeah, she did.
By the way, James O'Keefe, the guy who started the whole Project Veritas series of investigations, he came out and he said, I think it's extraordinary that CBS News would fire an employee who had access to tape from a rival company, ABC. This person was not our insider. Stay tuned for more Project Veritas. So he claims it's not even the person.
They got the wrong person.
Yeah, so whoops, they're out.
So they're not only sinister, they're incompetent.
But Tucker, why is this in any way? It's not really surprising to you and me. We've seen this developing over some period of time where the networks they're not digging for information that we can all use and examine for ourselves. They're digging for a point of view, and they're trying to outdo one another, in this case, whether it's anti.
So when I was a kid, and my dad worked in the media, and so I felt like I had a front row seat to a lot of the stuff. The networks and the media were liberal. I mean, they were liberals working in a liberal business, kind of towing a liberal line, a Democratic Party line. And that was annoying, and I think it had a bad effect on the country. That's not exactly what's happening now. Now what you're seeing is a kind of ruthless suppression of anybody who challenges the interests of the ruling class. Now you kind of see the media operating as a sort of Praetorian guard for like finance. Do you know what I mean? Like standing up on behalf of like private equity chieftains and hurting anyone who asks questions. And that's the point at which you think, well, this is actually scary. This needs to be destroyed. Like, I have always felt sad whenever a media business goes under, because I so believe in the basic mission of media, which is to hold
local reporting.
Yeah, and to hold the powerful to account. They really need it. That's why I love working at Fox, because we actually do it. You know, imperfectly, but we do it. They are on the other side. I'm not saying they're liberal. They're not liberal at all. There's nothing liberal about this. It's fascist. And they're on the side of the powerful, making sure that nobody questions the powerful. And at that point, you know, I think they're really a threat to the country. I mean that.
And no story, I think, is it more obvious than, well, two stories. The way they've covered this president, and you see with when NBC got that Access Hollywood tape, they never explained how the Washington Post, or why suddenly it ended up with the Washington Post. It was leaked to the Washington Post. They went with the story.
Well, the reporter who leaked it turned out to be a close friend of the head of the news division at NBC, Noah Oppenheim, from Harvard. So Noah Oppenheim, I know what happened because I used to work at NBC, and I know people who saw this happen. And Noah Oppenheim moved that tape, leaked it to the Washington Post, to his friend, through a series of cutouts. And then they fired Billy Bush, which was just a hapless bystander because he was in the way. One of the worst things I've ever seen happen, they've never copped to it. They never did an internal investigation or released the findings of it. They covered it up.
This is where it all kind of becomes obvious. This is where the transparency, I think it's so critical in what you do every night. And I could say this, I'd say this to Tucker if I didn't work at Fox. You do such an important show. You tackle issues I think a lot of people are afraid to touch. It's really important, and I know no one's going to stop you from continuing to do it, but you must continue on the cultural and political front, and glad to have my colleague.
Thank you.
All right, Tom.
Your studio is much nicer.
Thanks so much. Your lighting is that. I mean, he actually has better lighting. I'm going to switch. I'm going to go there. He's going to go here.
You just don't need as good lighting as I do.
When I left President Trump's cabinet, did I write a tell-all book? No. Did I go on CNN and attack the president? No. Have I said a cross word about our president? Not one time. And I'll tell you why. First, that would be dishonorable. I was there to serve his agenda, not mine. Second, the president's doing a great job for America and Alabama, and he has my strong support.
These people are sick.